Hello, HomeLife family. Dave Thompson here, and welcome to another of HomeLife University's live webinar series. This is webinar number 82, Offer Presentation Strategies. So I hope everybody's having a great day. It's kind of one of those weird February days where I am. Weather is unpredictable as all get out. One day it's sunny, one day it's warm, one day it's not, one day it's really cold. So hopefully you're having a great day. Um, we have an interesting topic today: offer presentation strategy. So let's just jump right on it, shall we? So as always, these are meant to be live and interactive. You can send me an email, training@homelife.com, if you have any questions or comments or feedback. You can also reach me by calling me at 416-733-9966. I'm at extension 143. You can also direct message me through Twitter at HomeLifeUNI. That's at HomeLifeUNI, which is short for university. So now that we've got the bookkeeping out of the way, today's webinar is brought to you by our good friends at GL Print. They are our suppliers of, I think, one of our most amazing tools. One of the ones that, if I were selling on a full-time basis, that I would be using. And that's the Home Life Combination Business and Long Distance Calling Card. When you're handing out business cards, you want to think of things that will cause them to have what I refer to as stickiness. You don't want them to take your business card and then immediately dispose of it as soon as you're on site. You got to give them some reason to hold on to them. And this is basically one of the best ideas I've ever seen. I mean, your business card itself is simply one of the best marketing tools you'll ever have. But the challenge, again, as I just said, is how to make it so valuable that people hold on to them. So on the day that they need a realtor, that your name, your number is on their person, in their wallet, in their purse. So who would throw away a business and long distance calling card? It obviously has some clear value to it. It provides 30 minutes of complimentary long distance calling in Canada and the US and other parts around the world. The 30 minutes applies to North America specifically, but it may vary depending on the telecom system in various other parts of the world. But the key here is that on that day when you've forgotten your cell phone, when your battery's dead, or if you have friends and family from around the world that you would like to have call you at no charge, these are the tools that you provide to do that. Now, to get them, you obviously need to sign into our online filing cabinet, the Home Life University Resource Center, and you click on the Marketing Tools tab. And when you do that, you will see Home Life Marketing Programs. And when you click on that, you'll be taken directly into the GL Print Home Life website, where you can see the 2-in-1 business card and phone card. So you can customize them. You have to log in and register the very first time you go there. But after that, it's straightforward as far as ordering more. Now, how many should you order? That's a question I'm frequently asked. Well, as you can see from the price points here, it doesn't really make a lot of sense not to buy 1,000, because at $98, $20, you get an extra 500 over the $500 price for $20 more. So really, that's the price point. 1,000 cards at $98. Now, just to be clear, for those that, because I've had a lot of people ask me this, there is no charge to you, the agent. You purchase the cards. If the minutes are used, that's great. If they're not used, no problem. Either way, you're not charged any additional funds. It's just there. It's available, again, for you to use yourself if you wanted to, if you need to make a long distance call, or your friends or family, or your customers, either current or past customers. So again, just an amazing tool. Now you can find them, again, as I said, through the Resource Center, or you can go directly, if you like, to glprint.com/homelife. I think one of our most amazing marketing tools. So check it out. Consider it. Now let's dive into today's frequent topic, which is offer presentations. Now, before I get into that, because this is such a sensitive area, shall we say, um, I do need to provide this quick disclaimer. The following is for information purposes only and is not meant to be taken as legal advice. Since every province, state, and real estate board have different policies, it is important that you ensure that you are acting in accordance with local laws, rules, and regulations, and are aware of all local legal ramifications. Okay? Fair statement? Um, Now, before I jump into the actual strategies I want to talk about, I think it's equally important just to spend a few minutes discussing obtaining a signed buyer representation agreement. So I'm going to do that as well, but again, that disclaimer still applies. Uh, um, so I'm not going to get into the legal aspect of the buyer representation agreement. That is for you to research and understand, okay, just to be clear. What I'm attempting to do today is discuss a strategy and provide a simple script, and hopefully it will assist you in obtaining a signed buyer agency agreement and then to have your offers accepted. Okay, so on that note, let's talk about the buyer representation in just a little bit more detail, as I said. So basically, it has three major purposes. It explains the role and the responsibilities of the realtor. So those are clearly articulated in the buyer representation agreement. And basically, it's articulated, clearly understood, and agreed to in writing. The service or services to be provided are clearly understood and agreed to in writing. That's the key part of that. And the responsibilities of the buyer are clearly understood and agreed to in writing. So the bottom line is this was never designed or meant to be a form that ties a buyer to you. Now, I've seen that used in the past. It's not what it's for. And you can, through, depending on which version of a home buyer representation agreement you use, you can try and enforce it. You can try and activate or act upon the holdover clause. But, seriously, if that buyer's not happy with you, the best thing you should probably do is just release them from the agreement. In fact, that's what I used to say to them. I used to say, the point of this form is to detail how we were going to work together during the time that we do work together. Anytime you want to cancel the agreement, just let me know and it will be canceled. The benefit to you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, is that once you've signed this, I have a legal responsibility to act in your best interest, what we refer to as a fiduciary duty. So there's no downside to this whatsoever. So the question then becomes when to get it signed. Now, many realtors I've taught or coached tell me that it's really difficult to get their buyers to sign this agreement. And they tend to opt into leaving it to the absolute last minute. In other words, at the time just before writing the offer. So again, this is technically not wrong, but you need to consider that if there is a misunderstanding during the showing and offer writing process and a dispute does arise, since the responsibilities of the parties have not really been committed to in writing, it's really easy to imagine that things can take a turn for the worse, and spin out of control, resulting in minimally a lost client, and worse yet, maybe litigation between the parties. So, in my view and my recommendation, my strong recommendation, is to get it signed as soon as possible. So, that ideally means at your first buyer interview. I mean, at that interview, you're asking a series of questions. You might use a form that looks something like this, a buyer questionnaire form, where you record their name, their contact information, and things like the price they're looking for, and the beds and baths, and all those various things. I think when you're filling this out, and by the way, you should have a pre-made form, just like this one, a similar one to this, but branded to you and your company, and then use it. Why? Because now it becomes matter of fact. Now it's just a form you always use as part of your system and your tool. So you sit down, you ask these questions, and then when you get to the end of it, it seems like a logical flow to me to then discuss the types of agency that are available and for the buyer to choose one and then have them sign the buyer representation agreement. I think that's just a natural flow. Years ago, I used to be a banker. I'm much better now, but I used to be a banker. And when I first sat down and had people come in and look to apply for loans and mortgages, I, as the banker, was uncomfortable, which made my clients uncomfortable. Once I was told, that discomfort is coming from you, stop being that way. Just act as if this is what happens in every situation. This is just a matter of fact. This is what you have to go through, Mr. and Mrs. Potential Lender or Mr. and Mrs. Potential Buyer. So just make it part of how you work. Now, you might say, well, that sounds easy, but I can almost hear people saying through the computer here, but Dave, it's really not that easy. Well, it isn't. But with all things in real estate, in order to make it easy, what you need to do is practice, drill, and rehearse. So you want to know what you're going to say and have said it enough times, you rehearsed it enough times that it just flows off the tongue, that it's comfortable. Again, it's a matter of fact. It's what I always do. So again, if you're finding them, they're feeling uncomfortable and you're having difficulty having them sign it, it probably comes from you and your discomfort. So again, just practice, drill, and rehearse until it's literally second nature and it just rolls off your tongue. And quite frankly, the actual reason that the buyer representation agreement was developed was to protect the buyer. So that just like a listing agreement, there was something on paper to, again, quantify and commit to who's responsible for what. It was not ever designed to tie them to you as an agent. Now, as we're going through this process, the entire process from the buyer interview or ask the questions. One of the questions that I didn't talk about, I just want to touch on it quickly. Ask them how they would prefer to be contacted. In this day and age, things have changed. In the past, people wanted a phone call. These days, people don't really want to talk to you on the phone anymore. They would prefer, in a majority of cases now, over 50%, to be texted to receive a text from you. So ask them, what's their preferred method of contact? Phone, email, or text? You'd be surprised how many will choose text. So add that to your buyer interview form. So you're sitting there, you're finding out what they're looking for, you've narrowed it down to a list of things they need as opposed to a list of things they want. Then you need to set expectations as I walk you through the buyer process here. So the next thing is setting those expectations. So when you're talking about showing them houses, okay, you've got this description of what they're looking for. My recommendation now is to tell them right up front that what we're going to do is examine all the listings that match your criteria through the MLS system. We should be able to, by looking at the actual listings themselves, narrow it down. There'll be reasons that we can discount a number of the homes. There's no point in looking at houses that simply won't do. And when we do that, it should be more than feasible to narrow it down to the top 5 to 8 homes. And then you'll take them out and show them those 5 to 8. Maybe not all at once, because people have trouble remembering things if you show them too many houses. I'm sure if you think about it, so do you. So, be mindful of that. Maybe it's 4 houses each time you go out. There will be buyers that want to look at everything on the market, everything that's new coming on the market. When that starts to become apparent to you that they're going to just keep looking and looking and looking, then this is the time that you need to sit back and decide whether or not this makes good business sense for you to continue to work with them. Because remember, this is a business. You're working as Me Incorporated. And you need to decide whether or not the time you're investing in these people makes any kind of sense. I know personally, I have dealt with buyers in the past who look at 30, 40, 50, 60 houses and then wandered off and bought through somebody else. And I just shook my head. It's like I wasted all that time. But that's on me because I didn't set that expectation that we're only going to show you the top 5 to 8. Now, if you can't find the house in that 5 to 8, okay, then you're going to continue showing. But, you know, set that expectation. You're not going to see everything. And I've also had buyers tell me, well, I'm looking for that bargain, that steal that comes up. And it's like, well, it's not going to come up. If it does come up, it's going to be snatched up really quickly, probably by a real estate agent, heck, probably by me. So the chances of you finding that are slim to none. Let's just go with reality here. Let's look at the houses and pick one that suits you the best. Assuming they find that house, then it's time to draft that offer. Now, in these days of multiple offers, the wisest strategy and the best advice that you can give them is to encourage them to make their best offer. The best offer they're able to, keeping in mind that if they offer too much and there's financing involved, then if the offer is too much above market value, well, they simply won't be able to obtain approval. And that's, again, a line you can use with the seller, too, when you're talking about list prices. Like, if we list it too high and somebody does, in fact, overpay you for it, they may not be able to close on it because the bank may not finance it to that extent. Now, when I speak with agents in the field, they quite often tell me that their buyers fail to really take their advice about making that first offer their best offer. So they tend not to follow that advice on, like, with the first offer, or sometimes even the second or third offer, because the buyer simply doesn't believe in what they're being told by the agent. And they still think it is possible to steal a property when we all know it's not. The only thing that will teach them different is time and experience. But you, as their realtor, owe it to them to explain to them that I have dealt with other people who have felt the same way. And they've tried to go in lower than they should have. And what they found is that they weren't accepted, and they were disappointed after disappointment after disappointment until they came up to play the game the way it's currently being played, which is making your best offer. Now, as their buyer's agent, always determine before you present that offer if they're in a multiple offer situation, before you draft that offer. And for that matter, even though it's required in most jurisdictions to advise all the agents that there's another offer coming in, it's still better to take a moment and call just to confirm ahead of time whether or not something new has happened, even though you should have been notified. So let's talk about the offer presentation itself, which is the main point of why we're here today. If you represent the buyer, and of course, depending on what's normal for your market area, because it's different again in various jurisdictions across Canada and the US, I always recommend trying to present your offer in person. Now, I know that's not the current way of doing things, that you draft the offer and then you fax it over to the listing agent and you go and have a coffee and wait. Really, I just can't fathom that. That's part of the reason why people look at us and think you're being overpaid for what you do. I think you need to go. You need to invest some time and do your best to help their offer get accepted. So when you go in person, you can add additional information, or you can answer the seller's questions immediately. Questions like, do you think they'll come up? Well, you've already spoken to your buyer. So if that question is being asked, you could, infer that, yes, I believe they will. What are you thinking? And keep that negotiation going. You should also suggest to your buyer that in addition to making it as high as possible, that they should make it as easy as possible for the seller to accept. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, larger than normal deposit checks, deposit amounts. There's a certain amount that's normal, whatever that is, quote unquote, for your market area. Have them put down the highest deposit they have available, the highest amount of cash they have available. They're still going to throw it into the deal anyway, so why not put it on the table to demonstrate to the seller how serious they are about purchasing that home? Now, in the actual body of the offer, There should be little or no conditions contained within. Again, make it as easy as possible for the seller to say yes. If possible, the closing date should be a date that's acceptable to the seller. Like, try and accommodate what their needs are. I've seen that so many times where virtually identical offers are on the table, but one of them hits the seller's date exactly right, and that's the one they go for. So it's important to again, give it some thought, make it as palatable, as acceptable as possible, or easy to accept as possible for the seller. Now, another thing that works really well, and in some cases I've seen this make the difference, even to the point, you may find this hard to believe, but even to the point where they accept an offer that's actually less than a competing offer, because the buyers provided the sellers a letter. And in that letter, they explain how much they love their house and why they really want to buy that home. You know, they have children, they want their children to go to that school, whatever the scenario is, or they've loved that house since they were kids, whatever they can add that is just not contained in a faxed offer, it's just not there. The emotions can't be conveyed. Sometimes people, although they want, most amount of money they can get, sometimes they care about what happens to their house after they leave, and that could make the difference. So consider that as well. Now, in the scenario, if you're on the other side of the table, if you represent the seller, then you obviously present each offer in order as they were registered, and begin by reminding the seller that you understand that the offer price is typically the most important thing to them, but unless the rest of the offer is acceptable, then the offer price actually is irrelevant. So you explain how you read basically from top to bottom of the offer, and then you start at the bottom and work your way back up again to make sure that the closing date's okay. If there are any conditions that they're acceptable to the seller, what is the deposit amount? What's the offer price? So you work your way back up. Assuming all those other pieces are acceptable, then it comes down to, is the price acceptable? Now, obviously, in a multiple offer situation, you're not going to spend as much time explaining each individual offer. You're probably going to say, okay, let's send them all back and tell everybody to bring their best offer. Or you might narrow it down to the top 2 or 3 and ask them to bring their best offer. And then once they come back, you review the merits of each of them, compare them to each other, and there typically is an obvious first choice. And then they decide whether they want to accept it or not. So there's no secret strategy that I can share with you. It's just putting some thought into it and putting some extra effort into trying to get it accepted for your clients. Now, in many areas today, multiple offers are so common, and the one being accepted is becoming, to be the one accepted is becoming increasingly difficult. A strategy that I will share with you is that some agents are actually drafting 2 offers and having them signed. So there's one that will be presented immediately, and if there's no real competition, then that's the one that you go with. If there's a second higher offer or another offer coming in, then a quick phone call back to your buyer saying, okay, I recommend that we go with the second offer. Just get that verbal commitment that it's okay, and then try that again. It's better to have it available right there in your briefcase. Again, it shows seriousness of the buyer, and the one that responds the quickest, because it might be, who knows, hours before the other buyers have a chance to counter that offer, whereas yours is back almost immediately. So that just puts you in the power position, basically. Okay, so that's some strategy. I don't know if anybody has anything that's on the call right now that would like to add it. If so, there is that chat box to the right-hand side of the screen you're watching. If so, feel free to add that in. We love to share thoughts with each other and help each other out. Other than that, I think that's it for today. I hope you found some value in it. Next week, we're going to revisit one we've done before, which is, where'd my clicker go? There we go. Which is, is community marketing for fun and profit. Basically, it's Jerome the Gnome and all the things that go along with that, and how you can give back to the community, and in doing so, garner yourself some extra business, not to mention goodwill. So in the meantime, I always encourage you to follow me at HomeLife UNI. That's our Twitter account or our Facebook page. These are all my contact venues here, so you can call me at 416-733-9966. I'm at extension 143, or just ask for Dave. Again, my email is training@homelife.com. I'm sure most of you know it by now. You can follow me on Twitter or direct message me at HomeLifeUni. And my Facebook page is at HomeLife INTL, which is short for HomeLife International. And of course, our website is homelife.com or .ca. And I'm Dave Thompson, your Director of Education. So basically, until next time, remember, green and gold, got it sold. The content and the program systems and tools detailed herein are the exclusive property of HomeLife Realty Services, Inc. Any duplication, dissemination, or reproduction in any manner whatsoever, without the express written consent of HomeLife Realty Services, Inc., is strictly prohibited and a violation of applicable laws. Have a great day, everyone. Have a profitable spring, and we'll catch you all on the flip side. Bye for now.